Hi and welcome back to Rennch. In today's video we are going to change the high pressure fuel pump in my first generation Porsche Panamera. So I started getting the symptoms of a bad fuel pump, which is a really long startup. Typically the car starts up really quickly. It runs really rough at idle, and then Christmas tree on the dashboard. I'll show you right now. So here's the Christmas tree that is starting my car right now. Start stop mode deactivated. I don't know if you guys can hear how rough that is. Instantly check engine. So based on how bad that is, I picked this up. So this is a really beautiful piece of kit. This is the high pressure fuel pump. It attaches to the back of the engine. You can see why it costs $1,000 or more. It is really a piece of engineering. So you need this, and you also need this, which is a little expensive piece of plastic from Porsche to do it. And it's the cam cover. I will put the numbers of each of these things in the description below if you guys want to search for these. This is the part you need, and this is the part you need to make this thing work. So with that, let's get into it. Now the basic procedure, the fuel pump is back here. It's on the back side of the engine. So if we're looking at the engine bay this way, we're on the back side. You've got to pull this. You've got to pull your wipers first. You got to pull this thing. Then there's a brace, a cross brace, that goes above, and then there's a shield that goes this way. So those are the big four things you got to pull. You got to move some wiring out of the way, some AC lines, and then you're good to go. So let's get into that. You got to wriggle them to get them off. Next, it looks like this cross brace has to go. It's plastic. There's a lot of stuff attached to it. Almost everything on this car is a Torx T25. So I'm going to start pulling those, and then every major piece I'm basically throwing into a plastic bag, all of the Torx and such that go with it. So I don't want to lose stuff. There's a lot of wiring loom attached to this, so I'm going to try to get this thing off, and then I think we have to take the entire wiper assembly off after that. But let's get into this. Looks like I lied. It looks like the other bigger size is the T30. So you need a T25 and a T30 for this. That I wish I did was long Torx. I need long Torx, and I don't have any. And there's a couple of really tricky spots under here, like on the inside of this, where you really need to have some length where you can just kind of shoot them out. So I'm gonna have to add that to the tool list. We all like new tools, so that's all right. Sorry. This is the part where you drop the little part and then spend the next 40 minutes looking for it. I'm just gonna find myself another Torx T30. So this is pretty tricky. You've got these two coolant lines right here. And they have these clips that look like this that I probably wasn't supposed to take out, but I did. Get this into focus. So these things are just clipped on. You've got to pull them back, and then there's metal sleeves on the end of these coolant lines. The whole thing pops out. So that's not, it was not readily apparent when I started, but that is a little tricky if you have to do this. That is a little tricky to get off. I think it's a plug, and I'm trying to pull the entire thing upwards. It runs through this plastic piece to the other end, so that's kind of the last piece holding this on, and then I can take this wiper assembly off. All right, update. Got it off. It is not, this is how it goes in. So it's really just the plastic part that comes off. The part that was hanging me up was this lip on this side, and it's because the ring on mine is broken, so it got brittle and cracked. I think if the ring is not broken, you can just push the sides in. Each lip will release and you'll be able to pull it right up, but that was not the case for me. Next, we have to do the wiper motor and this cross brace. It's a mixture of T30s and some regular nuts. So on the wiper motor, I found if you flip the whole motor this way, it's a lot easier to get to this plug. I couldn't get this plug off from the other side because it was blind. But I flipped it this way and it's gonna be a lot easier to remove now. So for this, it looks like I'm gonna need 15, 13, and 10 millimeter sockets to get this entire aluminum cross brace off. There's a few more things attached to this. There's a couple of wiring, a couple of chunks of wiring, and then just the occasional clip like this. And then it looks like it should be relatively freed up. We've got clips here for these blue and green lines that need to come off. And we've got this that needs to come off, and a couple other things. So after all of that, here is our culprit right here. So this is on the back of the motor. You see these sort of 3 dots. You see these 3 dots at the top. I've got the new one right here that's got the 3 dots at the top. So I've got to remove a few more bolts. You can see here. There's obviously fuel lines. They're high pressure. And they've got to get detached. And it looks like there's some sort of cover plate over it. And then, according to this, we've got 3 main bolts that go through. So let me get cracking on those. Probably gonna be too hard to get in there to shoot this, but you get the idea. It's tight quarters in there. So I'm using a 10 millimeter ratcheting spanner for the fuel pump shield. So the fuel pump is held in by these kind of funky bolts. I will say at the end there, I pulled off one little bolt that released the coolant hose. I don't know where I'm looking. Released the coolant hose, and it made it a lot easier just to get to everything. So I think everything's disconnected now. I'm gonna give it a go, try to pull it out. All right, there it is, you guys. There's the high pressure fuel pump, and of course it's got a switch on it. Let me disconnect that with my other hand. So that's it in all its glory. Still got some fuel in it, so I'm gonna put it in a place where that's okay. And yeah, there it is. So here's a quick tour of what I had to remove. All of this windshield wiper stuff, of course all the bolts are associated with it. Various clips, I've got the roof of my little 911 project here full of that's kind of top level plastic stuff and all the bolts that go with it. So I'm probably, realistically, I'm probably like 2 hours into this. So what I'm going to do on the way back as I assemble is I'm going to be cleaning up this engine compartment a little bit because it was really trashed. So I'm going to get shop vac in here and get all these leaves out and just wipe it all down, make sure it's nice and clean, and then begin the process of reinstallation. One thing that's important to point out is when you pull the fuel pump out, you reach inside there, there's all of this shredded plastic, and that's typically from that cam cover has been brittle and cracked. So I've been using various things, a zip tie, I'm using my finger, I've been using a screwdriver to basically go into the hole and then pull back and sort of scrape out from the inside just to get it as clean as I can. And obviously you want that mating surface to be as clean as possible. And I have a bunch of little plastic debris in there. So gotta make sure you clean all that stuff out really well. So if I'm reassembling, this to me seems like the logical way for this thing to go. And that slides in, and then this slides into that. I'm gonna put a little bit of lube here just to keep that seal lubed and stick it on in. So I've got the cross brace in. I'm really double and triple checking to make sure I don't have any lines or wires or stuff that's hidden under there that's not supposed to be there that I'm gonna have to dig out. So I'm gonna spend the next couple minutes going around and making sure everything is correct. And then I have all the hardware right here, and I'll bolt it together and then move on to the motor, the wiper motor. Good morning. It's the next day, and good news and bad news. Good news is the victim, the patient, was a successful transplant. I'll show you guys that in a second. The bad news is I forgot to plug the windshield wiper motor power in. So I gotta take apart the cowl and kind of do that part over again. So I'm gonna do that right now, and then I'll show you guys what it looks like turning this thing on. Here we are, moment of truth. Hit the brake. Oh, it purrs like a kitten. It ain't no check engine light. It runs like a champ. So I consider that successful, and that's going to do it for this. That is going to wrap up this episode of Rennch. A few lessons I learned during the course of this process. Number one, you definitely want to have long T25 and T30 torques for this. If you can get the 6-inch ones, even better. I was able to find this at the very end, and it made my life a lot easier, which is just basically an extension for your drill. 14s and 16s. You need a lot of 14s and 16s for this. 14 mil sockets and open end wrenches, 16 sockets and open wrenches. 117 for the bottom side of the fuel pump. And the other thing is, take pictures. I really wish I had taken pictures of how everything assembled along the way, because I spent like a good hour trying to figure out where my inner cowl pieces, like how they oriented and how they went. I ended up having to go online and go to my computer and kind of try to figure out, and then it was just a huge pain. So take pictures along the way so you can reassemble easily. Otherwise, it wasn't terrible. It was just mostly getting, in fact, if I had to do it over again right now, I could probably do it in like 2 hours. I'd be much more confident with taking stuff off and how it comes off. But when you're just doing this for the first time, it's really a pain in the butt. I will say on the flip side, though, it is magical to get this car back. It's been a couple months that I've been in limp mode. This is a very expensive piece. It's like $1,200. And if you get the car back to its glory, which is just a rocket ship that you can put 4 people in, then it is awesome. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks for subscribing to the channel, and I'll talk to you next time.